when you catch this terrorist, treat them as Nigerians?
No, I'm saying the moment they choose to wear that toga of terrorism and they're caught in the crossfire, okay, of course you're going to be declaring them terrorists. But if you can also build some pathway, some safe corridor, okay, to see how many of them can be rescued, because it is not all of them that are holding those guns that actually might want to shoot. And that's why I said to you that at the back of all this, remember we started by talking about poverty.
Now we will begin today's conversation taking our quote first from Malala Yousafzai, Pakistan activist for female education and a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize laureate. She's also the world's youngest Nobel Prize laureate and second Pakistani to ever receive a Nobel Prize. She once said, "With guns, you can kill terrorists. With education, you can kill terrorism." Very good one, you say. Now let's see let's take the second one from David Levithan, an American young adult fiction author and editor. He once said, "What separates us from the animals, what separates us from the chaos, is our ability to mourn people we have never met." I quite agree with this one. Very touching. Warm greetings and welcome to D Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, Kaftan TV had earlier reported that a train conveying over 300 passengers from Abuja to Kaduna was attacked by bandits. The gunmen were said to have derailed the train with explosives and went on to shoot sporadically, killing some, injuring many, and ending up abducting others. Last Tuesday, exactly 1 week today, terrorists launched an attack on Abuja, Kaduna, that's Yankara Safi roads. This came hours after the bandit launched an attack on the Kaduna-Abuja train with 8 persons confirmed dead and several persons injured or kidnapped. According to sources, the bandits, who are still currently on rampage in the areas, have continued to cause apprehension among residents. Meanwhile, repairs on the damaged portion of the Abuja-Kaduna rail line commenced immediately as the federal government is considering recruiting locals for security at black spot areas. The Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, disclosed this in Kaduna during a visit to victims of the attack on a Kaduna-bound train by gunmen. Amechi said, following the directive by President Muhammadu Buhari to fix the rail and make it usable, the ministry has set modalities in place to commence work immediately. The minister also said the Office of the National Security Advisor will be consulted to ensure that those who will be recruited for the service are people of integrity. Now, reacting to the incident, Senator Ali Ndume faulted the federal government's handling of insecurity in the country, accusing it of complacency. He was also speaking in reaction to the remark by the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, that the attack on the Kaduna-Abuja rail line could have been avoided if digital security equipment had been procured. The minister said his colleagues declined approval for the purchase. Now, Ndume has, however, faulted the failure to approve the purchase, questioning why the bandits have not been tracked down. Ndume said, and quote, that there is a bunch and a lot of kleptocracy in the system, and the government needs to do something about it. Now, that's the big issue on today's conversation, as we will be taking a look at the economic and security implications of this wanton attack on our dear country, Nigeria, with our guest, Dr. Emeka Okengwu, who is a development economist, and Dr. Kabir Adamu, he is a security consultant. That's still to come on the program tonight. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is D Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, to expand this conversation a little bit further, we have Dr. Emeka Okengwu. He is a development economist. You're welcome to the show.
Pleasure.
All right, great to have you. All right, now let's start by getting your thought on the recent attack on the Kaduna. You have the Kaduna airport attack, the wanton attacks on the Kaduna Abuja rail line, just less than 48 hours, where you had one happen and then the other one happened like simultaneously. What do you make of these attacks?
I think we're basically at that point where every fabric of our social protection is eroding. Okay, so one is a failure of, or the absence of, social protection policies, or the failure of those in place. Two is a failure of what we call a security infrastructure and architecture, vis-a-vis what you call your soft and hard infrastructure. Soft in linking it to data intelligence gathering, hard listing it to those facilities and equipment that can be able to help you do real-time monitoring. Okay, because these are not ghosts. These are human beings. Okay, and I don't think anybody has seen any of them fly into the sky or disappear. So they appear from somewhere. So when you look at it as probably the failure of, like I said to you, social systems, okay, there are no jobs. I mean, the last statistics released shows that about 90 million youths, not Nigerians, okay, that report was specific on youths. Okay, and another one from the FAO had listed about 19.8 million Nigerians that were already in the starvation circle. So you, as much as you want to see this as criminality, but you need to be able to also look at, you know, the precursors or the triggers to this criminality and why it seems not to be abetting.
So now we have to link insecurity with poverty, unemployment. They
Yes,
just go.
it's just not to link it. It's there. It is a major trigger.
Okay.
It's a major trigger. That you see, and that's why you see a normal person who won't pick a pulse. You will see the things you won't want to do. When you're faced with that extreme hunger, you'll be shocked at the kind of things you can do. So it's at the doorstep of poverty, and then poverty is driven, of course, by one, lack of social security, you know, safety nets, and then two, unemployment or underemployment, and then three, and most of all, climate change.
Climate change. What has climate change got to do with this?
Everything.
Oh, tell us about
everything. Climate change has to do with farmers not being able to go to the farm.
Okay.
Climate change has to do with the loss of your ecosystems. Okay. Climate change has to do with forced migration. Okay. A lot of people are living where their natural habitations, and then they're on forced migration to places unknown to them. And this is where you bring in the herders, okay, that are coming in, you know, from the Sahel regions. A lot of them would naturally not want to leave their homelands, but can't stay there because, you know, it's become a living hell. Climate change has made it impossible for grasses to grow, you know, any form of life to be able to survive. So they are forced to move, and they are moving in their millions, and they're moving into territories that have no security systems or social systems for their own citizenry, at least those who you might classify as refugees. So it's become the wide west, okay, where what you call the herd immunity, all right, and the strongest survive, and it's a dog eat dog, you know, situation. So that's where we are.
Wow, quite sad. Now let's look at it, the economic effects of this wanton attacks on infrastructure. Now you borrow to build infrastructure and then it gets destroyed, and you cannot tell your debtors stories or give them one stories or the other. Even the finance minister once said that the rail lines were not built to settle debts that they incurred, or the debt that was incurred for their purchase or establishment. So what is the way out of this? How can this be settled, even though Nigerians have been assured or reassured that the repairs will commence very soon?
Well, the first is to reclassify. Like I said, you know, yes, there's this criminal element to it, but you see, I've struggled not to put it at the center of it. Okay, because if you are talking, you must be able to now approach it from what you call the carrot and stick.
Okay.
All right, where our laws abhor criminality and criminals must face justice. You also now look at it from the other way. A lot of these people are psychologically unbalanced. A lot of them are mental. Okay, there's no way you can see the amount of bloodletting they see on a daily basis, the amount of drugs that they need to consume, the environments and the situations they need to survive on that you won't get local. So a lot of them need psychiatric help. Plenty of them really. And we don't even have enough. We don't even have any. I don't know of any purpose, psychiatric hospitals at that lower level, at that level of the subnationals where you need them most now. Two, and again, like I said to you, you now have to focus on this issue of climate change and how you can use the climate or what you call climate mitigation strategies and adaptation strategies to be able to now start creating some form of livelihood for your people so that you can begin to create safety nets. Okay, or safe corridors. Okay, because if you don't do that, by nature of man, man is made to self-preserve. Okay, man is a hunter by his nature. So hunger or having it the easy way, everybody wants to live free and wide, and that's why you now have laws, to make it impossible for you to do XYZ without getting punished for if it negates the general principles of what people call decent living. Okay, so what is important is that we don't just take the soldiers in, wipe them out, kill them all. No, you can't, because more and more and more people, a lot of these 90 million people, find these activities of these bandits, if you may, terrorists, if you may, whatever it is you call them, criminals, if you may. It's an easy way, it's an easy pathway. Now they have gone to attack that train, and from what it is I read, they know the business coaches, and that was what they attacked. Okay, and they're taking away some very prominent people, and you can be very certain that a lot of money, so you find out that in extreme poverty and then the risk of a better life, a lot will tilt towards criminality. Because even if you're going to be getting 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 or whatever it is, however they share their money, is better than not getting anything at all. Do you understand? So that carrot must be introduced, where government must rethink its strategy, okay, and rules of engagement. Okay, you must be able to at least give alternatives to those who really want to, step out of that, and they give people choices. I mean, that's what I'm trying to struggle to say. So it's not about, the moment you get into the bush, you're criminalized. I can also say the moment you get into the bush, you're sick. Because it takes a sick person, to do the kind of things that they do.
I quite agree with you. All right, now, according to the Minister for Transportation, during an interview with newsmen, he blamed the attacks on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line on lack of approval for funds requested by his ministry to procure digital security surveillance gadgets. And unfortunately, they asked for 3 billion naira, but then when the dollar was exchanging for 400 naira, but now it's exchanging for 500 or over 500. So now they have to buy it at the recent exchange rate. So my question is, we know the situation at hand, what we are battling with. We're battling with a different kind of war, a peculiar kind of war in Nigeria, insurgency. So why then do we have to provide supply chains, infrastructure, then later think of how to secure them? Just like you have the Anchor Borrowers program, where you had they give loans to farmers, and with one hand, and then on the other hand, insecurity or bandits take them away with the other hand. Why do we have to wait for all of that?
Well, first let's talk about the Minister of Transportation, and I think I really empathize with him. Okay. I deeply empathize with him, and I think every Nigerian should be able to stand with government at this point in time. All right, because everybody thinks that government is money, but unfortunately, government is not money, because you have monies chasing, contending, sometimes very sensitive needs, and very little funds or data funds. But in saying that, I also think that we could get a little innovative, okay, in how we now procure public infrastructure. Okay, there are a lot of companies that have access to satellites, okay, that government can actually get into a relationship with, that can monitor, that area on a real-time basis.
Oh,
all right. And then what you now do is to be able to introduce, what you call technologies that can actually pinpoint or pick out human signature.
Okay.
Right? But probably this is not something that will be discussed very freely on air, but those technologies are available. And then if you could probably get into a relationship with people like that and then tie some of their payments to the ticketing system, okay, where you now introduce maybe a little more than what people are paying, and then from that you now start offsetting, what it is you're supposed to pay them after paying them whatever little that you can. So I think that instead of Nigerians now blaming government for this, all of us are government. Okay, because somehow you agree or you don't agree, we're all part of this. Okay, either you're on their side or you're not on their side. But what is important that this is our country, and everybody that has a solution, this is the time to begin to prefer it. So my spirit, my soul, my prayers goes to those first and foremost who've been hurt. I have one or two of my friends in that train. Okay, so it's also not been an easy time, for me. It's been very, very difficult as a person, because Kaduna is a place I live for a very long time, and I also use that train, very often. But what, like I said, is important is that at this point in time now, we have our citizens who are with these people, call them bandits, call them depraved, call them mental, call them terrorists, call them whatever. You have women, you have children, you have, even wives of generals, MDs of banks with them. These are citizens that we must try to do our best to rescue. Having said that, we also need to protect our infrastructure. Okay, it's important to protect them because they are soft targets. Okay, if you want to hit government, I mean, the time you had the problems in the Niger Delta, what were they hitting? They were hitting oil installations, and then that got a lot of attention because you need this infrastructure to be able to operate. So protecting them is something that government must get very innovative, in doing. And I'm saying it's not a question of going to look for 3 billion that probably we don't have. And I don't think you're talking about 3 billion naira. Okay, you're probably talking about $3 billion.
Well, he said 3 billion naira.
And it wouldn't be 3 billion naira. It can't be 3 billion naira. Okay, if it is, then even from the sales of the trucks, they can get it. But I think it's going to be something much more bigger than that. But if it's 3 billion naira, so be it. But I'm trying to say to you that there are other ways that we can actually protect public infrastructure that government needs to explore.
All right, so now Kaduna have been trying its best to increase revenue, attract investors, create jobs, push for ease of doing business through KADIPA, that's the Kaduna Investment and Promotion Agency. And they've been actually doing very well, pretty good with all of that. So how much will all of this affect or water down the appetite of investors or prospective investors, or even push for more investment?
Well, again, there's nobody investing in a situation of insecurity. But I'll share this story. I have a friend of mine, who is an angel investor, and he said to me that he made, a lot of his money in East Germany. And a lot of investors also make money during a crisis than when everything is peaceful. Okay, so it depends on what kind of, there are people who have appetite for high risks. Okay, so it's not really a major consideration, okay, for every category of investor.
Okay.
There are people who are happier, okay, because I mean, at that way you're negotiating from a very weak position, so that they're ready to take as much as they want, from you, and then they know that somehow they can also build some network to be able to keep, the insecurity down, depending on what kind of services that they're providing. Okay. All right. So yes, on a large scale, on a free scale, somebody says to you, "Oh yes, insecurity, investors won't come." No, but the investors who actually create insecurity to make money. There are people who make money, because of insecurity. Those are investors, aren't they? Okay. So what is important is the will for people to be able to deal with this, because every problem is local. All right? It are not people coming from whatever it is are coming. Even if they're coming from outside the country, they sleep there. At least they spend hours there. There's a pathway they use in coming in and going out. And no matter how ungoverned a space you might think is, okay, if a first human being has gone there, another person goes there. Either they are hunters or farmers or trackers or miners, or there is no place any human being has gone that another person hasn't seen. Okay, so problem is being able to now identify those who can be able to give you this information safely and then still remain safe. Okay, for this to be addressed. So that's why I said to you, we must be able to look at the soft infrastructure and the hard infrastructure. Must be able to look at the carrot and then look at the stick. Okay,
now so let's take you for example. Whichever way you stand or sit to see look at this scenario. As an investor, would you rather invest your money or time in a place such as Kaduna at this point in time? I'll ask you two questions and I'd like you to take them in one breath. That's one on the side. And then the other is, what else can the government do? What else can people do to remedy this situation?
Okay, if I was a diamond mine in Kaduna, I would invest. If I was a gold mine in Kaduna, I would invest. Because I can take in an army and make certain that I take away the gold. Right? Okay. Has insecurity in Zamfara state stopped the illegal mining of gold in Zamfara? So now, what can we do to stop this? Like I said, it's all about building what you call a local intelligence system. Okay. That involves everybody. That first and foremost builds trust. Okay. The moment you're able to build trust and then add hope on top of that trust, and then create a program where everybody sees what everybody can benefit against what they're losing from living the kind of life they're living. Okay. It's not going to be eating peanuts, right? This is not going to be cherry, but it is something you must begin to, develop this very comprehensive, multidimensional, frameworks that can begin to address these issues at all the levels, not just to make it, criminal versus the Nigerian state, because that person you're shooting that has a gun, the law allows you to shoot him down because he's bearing arms and he is taking away other people's rights. But that gun he's taking or holding does not make him any less a Nigerian. This is what is critical. Okay, so it's important. No matter how bad we feel, I mean, nobody wants a criminal around his house, but that criminal is a human being. And you see, that's why sometimes in the study of development, you find out some people will go to a prison, and then begin to run a research on a killer, to be able to find out what's in the mind of a killer, what will make you wake up in the morning the way you're looking. I mean, a fellow human being, you smile at, you're nice, and then he holds your neck and then starts cutting it like that of a goat. And 80% of the times we find out that these guys are mentally challenged. There are a lot of them who do these things that you see as normal. Okay, are actually people who need hospitalization and who need a lot of help.
So, Dr. Emeka, sorry to cut in there. Are you now saying that when you catch this terrorist, treat them as Nigerians?
No, I'm saying the moment they choose to wear that toga of terrorism and are caught in the crossfire, okay, of course you're going to be declaring them terrorists. But if you can also build some pathway, some safe corridor, okay, to see how many of them can be rescued, because it is not all of them that are holding those guns that actually might want to shoot. And that's why I said to you that at the back of all this, remember we started by talking about poverty. Okay, and you don't understand poverty. Sometimes you watch a movie. I'll give you a very typical example. This is you, good looking girl, and then there's this young man you've always loved all your life, and he has no money, and then you're now on television, and then one day he comes to see you, and that guy drives in with a flashy car. You get that feeling. Okay, when that guy walks away and says to you, probably, Annabelle, oh, you're doing this to me because I don't have money. And then you probably turn and say to him, but I mean, I waited for you all this while. I need to move on. I'm getting old. To you, you might still love him. But the reality of, your situation is that there's little or nothing he can do, okay, to help. Now, that guy, no matter how much you want to make him a normal human being, will need psychiatric rebalancing. And if you probably gave him a gun, he'll be pointing it at that guy driving that car with you in it, and he'll be pulling the trigger very happily. Okay? So it's in using this kind of very solid example, is not to support what these guys are doing. Like I said to you, 2 days ago, I think I could barely sleep a wink because I knew some people in that train, especially that young doctor, you know, that broke my heart because I was seeing my kids in that girl. That broke my heart completely. So I can imagine the state of the parents that she spoke to people, she conversed with people before she passed. And this is a girl who was supposed to be leaving the country to further her studies. So this thing makes you not want to see these people as anything but animals. Okay, what I'm trying to say to you, if we take that animal approach as the only approach to it, there are 98 million people who might be jumping into that pathway or going that way because they don't have anything else to do. That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay,
now I heard you talked about where you had in the Niger Delta, where you had people going to attack government facilities because they were trying to get attention. And so some people have actually said since that during President Olusegun Obasanjo, you had amnesty for and Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, people were talking about amnesty for militants, and then now some people are saying, should we then use that approach, amnesty for bandits? Do you agree with such school of thought?
Again, you know, there are philosophies behind this banditry. Okay, the philosophy behind the Niger Delta was that they said they wanted the control of their oil, and they wanted 100% control of their oil. So it's easy to say, okay, oil is the matter. So let's discuss oil and agree on what it is we need to do, which was why it was easy for government to have introduced the Niger Delta Development Master Plan. Okay, but in this case, you know, you have some of these people saying we want to Islamize the whole country. Okay, so it becomes very difficult to negotiate on those terms. Okay. Right? So for me, everything should be on the table. Nothing should be excluded. Okay, but we need to think it through. Okay. Okay, now you have a lot of, okay, the Truji guy in Katsina says, oh, they rustled 1,000 of his father's cattle or something and killed some of his brothers. And did that and did that and did that. He's brought something to the table. Okay, so if we pay for 1,000 cattle, if we pay, and I mean, Islamically, I stand to be corrected, it's also possible for you to even pay, you know, money for blood. Now, if we pay for this and pay for that and pay for that, can we get you to stop? That would be the basis. You could negotiate. But you're not going to just say, okay, we give all of you blanket amnesty, when indeed, to them, banditry has become a livelihood. Understand what I'm trying to say here? Okay. Okay, they make more money in banditry. These are people who had never seen 1,000 or 2,000, and they pick up somebody and are getting 20 million.
All right then. So now, even as we begin to round off, now the reason why travelers patronize rail and the airport, which is now which has gone 2 times its price, the airport fares, is because of safety. Now, security, which unfortunately is no longer guaranteed, the rail line is under attack, the road is under attack, even the airport, and then the waterways are not even any safe because of sea pirates or even drowning, capsizing, the boat capsizing and all. So if we keep talking about improving supply chains, infrastructure, what route is the best alternative now?
I've said to you, it's all about the human being. You're building all these things for the human being. Okay, all this infrastructure you mentioned are supposed to be used by human beings. You talked about the airfares going up to 50,000, sometimes more. And they gave a reason for that. Very simple. The cost of aviation fuel has increased because of the dollar exchange rates to the naira. It's that simple. So if we started producing, had a very consensus effort to begin to produce, you know, from all sources, aviation fuel, the cost might come down. Okay. True? Okay. Okay. You talk about the safety of your rail tracks, and there are people in the bush who are attacking these trains, okay, and taking people and then making demands and stealing. Now, these bushes, if you converted them into farms, okay, you can actually engage those who are living within those fringes, engage them well, okay, and then when you're now putting in your security surveillance systems, it becomes a lot easier for you to be able to now use your signature systems to be able to now know who is getting close to your perimeter fences, because all you need to do is to be able to now put about 25 meters or something perimeter, which will cost a little more money, but it becomes necessary. Okay, so this your real-time surveillance system can actually now alert you. And then if you have what you call rapid response, and that's why I'm saying that because of the cost of running this as a government program, you can actually outsource this, okay, to people who already have some level of infrastructure to be able to handle these things, and probably tweak the pricing, okay, of your ticketing if people are ready to pay to travel safely. And the moment these guys know that they can be repelled and repelled effectively, it is going to be a major deterrent.
Okay.
That's the point I'm trying to make. So it's all about, first and foremost, working on the human psyche by first and foremost building the proper data, now identifying what you call your black spots, okay, and then being able to secure those black spots, okay, by creating credible data and intelligence, supporting it with intelligence, technology that can be able to give you real-time information, and we can begin to now address these issues. But it's not enough. Okay, it is also important that you look at that person and engage him. A lot of us, who seemingly, in quotes, okay, in the middle class or upper class, are more even challenged than those in the bushes. You live in Abuja. Look at what house rent are doing to people. Okay, if your 1 year house rent now could actually be your 5 years or 6 years salaries. Okay,
Exactly.
right? So you're just lucky. People are lucky that yes, because you have a job, you have a place you can be able to while away your time. Imagine if you were alone, no job, no cousins, no people, no persons to talk to. If you had a knife and you saw somebody carrying what looked like money, I'm sure you wouldn't even know when you start attacking the person. It's only natural.
It's quite sad. Now, even as our time is fast spent, but one question keeps coming to my mind. Let's divert a little bit and talk about this long queues and fuel stations where 9 weeks still counting, even though somehow it looks as if it's coming down a little bit, but then later you begin to see the queues there again. Diesel has joined the race. It's become gold. Now, you even talk about cooking gas, which was about 7,500 as at last month, but now this month 8,500 and so. And then still the inflations that we get from the NBS says that at February we have 15.7, but then the market is not smiling. We still see all of this. Then how bad is the situation, Dr. Okengwu?
I picked up one word from you, and then last time I used it, somebody nearly laughed his head off. He said the streets are not smiling. I'm surprised they ever used that today.
The streets are not smiling. The market is not smiling anymore.
You see, it is all about the almighty dollar. I think we had this argument before our conversation, and I said to you that until we are able to hedge our naira to have value, we'll never be able to compete in the commodities market.
Is there any possibility that we can be?
Yes, the moment you show up your production, you compete favorably, because every of these products that you have just mentioned now are imported. Every. And are imported using the dollar. So as long as you have your dollar hovering at 570 to 600 and heading towards a 700 naira, there is no way the cost of diesel, because diesel has been deregulated. So it is selling at market prices. There's no on the recovery cost or subsidy. All right. So it's going to keep selling at what is bought. Ditto with gas.
All right.
So that is what the problem is.
Thank you so much for your time with us, Dr. Emeka Okengwu. It's always a pleasure having this talk with you.
Pleasure too. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, then let's go on a quick break. And when we return from this break, we will expand this conversation a little bit further with Dr. Kabir Ahmed, a security expert. I'll see you shortly. I hear you talk about it's in two ways, either political or ideological. So now from where you stand or sit, what would you make of this Kaduna Abuja train attack? Is it political or ideological, like you said?
The information at my disposal suggests that there is a significant amount of political motive in the targeting of Kaduna. The concentrated attack that Kaduna has received suggests that there is a desire to show the weakness of both the federal as well as the state government with regards to governance in that state. And this may not be unconnected with the 2023 election.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now let's get some more perspective on this very disturbing issue from Dr. Kabir Adamu. He is a security consultant. Hello, Dr. Adamu.
The pleasure is mine.
Great to have you. All right, now first, what do you make of this latest development and activities of bandits and terrorists in the country? How non-state actors incessantly attack infrastructure successfully, and they actually get away with it. Give us a sense of what this means for the country.
In simple terms, it means that they're getting away with what they set out to achieve in the first place. Whether these are bandits or terrorists, if we look at terrorists, their objective is to create fear with the hope of achieving whatever objective. Sometimes is ideological and other times is political. Now, in this instance, they are increasing the level of distrust that is between the citizens and government, and to an extent, reducing the ability of government to influence the people, and that gives them more influence in the areas of their operation. Now, if they are bandits, bandits by definition are groups that have outlawed themselves. They don't consider the laws, the constitution that governs any country. They don't consider that constitution as something that they recognize and go with. And so whether you look at it from that prism of banditry or just criminality, it's clear that these groups are challenging the authority, the supremacy, the monopoly of the use of force by the state. And in doing that, they are successfully reducing that capacity of the state to exert itself in its territory. And there is no where this is good for any country. That social contract between government and the people, where the government promises to protect its people, its citizens, is completely being depleted, unfortunately, by this. So in all ramifications, this is not a good development at all. In certain indices, it's an indication of the possibility of a failed state where non-state actors successfully challenge the supremacy of the use of force by the state.
Okay, all right. Now, Dr. Adamu, I hear you talk about it's in two ways, either political or ideological. So now, from where you stand or sit, what would you make of this Kaduna Abuja train attack? Is it political or ideological, like you said?
The information at my disposal suggests that there is a significant amount of political motive in the targeting of Kaduna. The concentrated attack that Kaduna has received suggests that there is a desire to show the weakness of both the federal as well as the state government with regards to governance in that state. And this may not be unconnected with the 2023 elections, but that does not rule out the two other motives. There is nothing that suggests that the two or three motives cannot be combined together. So as an example, a politician can decide to hire, for lack of a better word, a group that is either ideological or criminal in nature to achieve a political objective. So that does not rule out the possibility of the attack itself being carried out by a combination of both a bandit as well as an ideological group. Already there is information suggesting that the bandits that we know operating in the north central and northwest region have been partnering with terrorist groups that are ideological. So there's nothing that eliminates the possibility that all three factors are at play here.
Oh wow, quite sad. Now days are still counting, and those that are abducted are yet to return or be reunited with their families or loved ones. How difficult is it to spot where they are and to get rescue operations? If they were taken with bikes, is it so difficult to spot their location before we start talking about prosecutions?
So, with all sense of responsibility, first off, let me condole with the families of loved ones who have either died or are currently missing. Let me also condole with the generality of Nigerians who have been traumatized as a result of this incident. I run a consultancy. It's called Beacon Consulting, and I'm currently supporting 3 families who have lost their loved ones, whose whereabouts is currently unknown. All 3 families have been contacted by the abductors. They are yet to make any demand, and like I said, we're supporting them. And I would also encourage you as the media. Unfortunately, some other media houses have made the error of identifying some of the victims. That's not going to help the victims in any way. The abductors are currently profiling them, and once a media house identifies a particular person and shows his picture or her picture, what it does is that it's helping the abductors to now profile that person, and to an extent to assist them in the ransom demand. They may give the person has some affiliation, maybe it's a political appointee and they don't know that time, then that picture, so I think there is a need for some kind of circumspect by the media to be careful and mindful of the kind of information that they release at this moment in time, so that they don't endanger the lives of the victims. Now, to your question directly, the information at my disposal suggests that these attackers came in vehicles. In fact, the types of vehicles have been clearly mentioned. For some reasons, I will not mention that now. But I mean, I'm a private player, and if I have this kind of information, I'm hoping that the government already has that information. Now, the security agencies failed in the surveillance capabilities that would have suggested something is wrong when 3 to 5 or even more vehicles are driving at that time of the night towards a rail line. If we had surveillance capabilities, would have been able to detect that and probably stop that train from arriving at that point. Not only that, they came out, took their time to plant an IED on the rail track. If we had good intelligence and surveillance capabilities, we should have noticed that and stopped that train from arriving there. So to answer your question directly, it's not rocket science. If we were serious, and some of the government departments who are collecting huge sums of money as budget for intelligence gathering, if they were doing their work, this wouldn't have happened. I know that the Railway Corporation has a senior ranking police officer deployed there as part of its security management structure, governance structure. I know that the DSS has a senior ranking officer that is deployed to the NRC as part of its security governance structure, as well as several other government departments. So by now, I expect that the government should have launched an investigation. First off, an in-house investigation, probably by the NRC, to find out what happened. And then the federal government should also conduct an investigation. And in fact, the parliament should set up an investigative committee to identify all of these faults that I've mentioned. So much has happened. Time would not even allow me to start discussing the failures in terms of lack of responsibility and accountability that led us to where we are. But an investigation will bring that out, and then hopefully those that are responsible should be held accountable. So in direct response to your question, it is stoppable. There are significant solutions that are out there, both in terms of intelligence and physical security deployment that could have prevented what happened on Monday.
Now, according to the Minister for Transportation, during an interview with newsmen, he blamed the attack on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line on lack of approval for funds requested by his ministry to procure digital security surveillance gadgets. Now, is that a viable means to an end if we have to get these gadgets?
With due respect to the minister, no. That is just one out of several layers of security. Just to explain what surveillance means. Surveillance means just using either visual, audio, or sometimes even thermal, as well as several other options for detecting changes in an environment, and then using that whatever you detect to now analyze and then identify why that change happened. So clearly that is not enough to deter a would-be criminal. What it does only is to identify that, look, something is wrong, and then the next step will take. In my earlier response, I gave you instances that if we had good intelligence, so surveillance fit into that intelligence component. Now, intelligence in security arrangements stands on its own. Intelligence will not prevent an attack. What it will do is to give you the forewarning that an attack will happen. Okay. So there are several layers that are meant to support an intelligence capability. So in this instance, a perimeter fence around the rail track is absolutely important.
Okay.
Secondly, and more importantly than to support better surveillance, the communities. And I'm happy that the minister also mentioned that in an interview yesterday. I've been talking about this, frankly, since last year. Those communities that are living in that corridor, they need to be incorporated into the security architecture for the protection of the rail line. And what do I mean incorporating them? Giving them jobs, is making them see the relevance of a sustainable rail track, so that they themselves have the incentive to protect the rail track, because they know that's where their income is coming from. It's better than wasting 3 billion naira on a solution that frankly cannot stand on its own. There are 4 layers of security usually. And when all of those layers are working together, for a lot of reasons, I don't want to mention those layers here, but when those layers are working effectively together, then you would achieve good security. Where you just mention one, and that one is even just a small sub-component of an intelligence capability, then it's not good enough.
All right, now, Dr. Kabir, the Kaduna State actually is the major hub of military presence, and yet you have this incessant attacks there. Do you sense conspiracy here? Because just as the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, once disclosed that investigations revealed some serving police and military officers have links with bandits terrorizing the state and others. Is there more to this that met the eyes?
Have that kind of information at my disposal, and as a professional, I wouldn't want to go into a conversation that I'm not aware of. What I know for a fact is that there are gaps within our security architecture that are being exploited by these gaps. Some of these gaps are internal to the security arrangement that we have in place. You are right, Kaduna is the most garrisoned state in the country. I'm not aware of any other state that has the number of security formations like Kaduna has. And so that tells us one thing, that security should not just be physical. Security goes beyond the physical arrangement that you have in place. So let me quickly explain what I mean. For time purposes, I'll be very brief. Of all the security formations that you have in Kaduna, none of them has responsibility for dominating the ungoverned spaces where this threat element. These threat elements are not hidden. We know them. These are bandits, gunmen, who hibernate in forested parts, in mountainous areas, come out, carry out these attacks, and then take sometimes hundreds of people. If you count the number of abductees that are in Kaduna now, we may be looking at up to 1,000. Now, where do you hide 1,000 persons? You don't hide 1,000 persons inside a house. So they are there in those ungoverned spaces, but none of these formations has that mandate to dominate those ungoverned spaces. Now, that is rooted in the lacuna that our constitution has. The ungoverned spaces, most of them, apart from the reserves, are under the custody and care of the states. And as you know, security is still in the exclusive list. So the states don't have the capacity to enter those ungoverned spaces and dominate them. And the federal government is already stretched. And that is why we still have this gap, these ungoverned spaces where these are. So, like I said, I do not have any information at my disposal that would confirm the existence of, a fifth columnist or saboteurs within security organizations. But I also know that the level of grievance and grievance within our security organizations allows very easy incentivization for crime. So if I'm someone who wants to achieve whatever criminal or terrorist objective, and I have, let's say, $1 million in my hand, which these terrorists do, it will be very easy for me to engage several security officials and make them do what I want, sometimes consciously or sometimes unconsciously, due to this level of grievances. So there are gaps that are being exploited, and these gaps, some of them are internal to the security organizations, while others are external to the security organizations.
All right, now taking a cue from what you just said, now the lawmakers have ordered the security officials to carry out sustained bombardment on terrorist enclaves. Few days ago, and then also you have the Kaduna state governor who preferred a solution to end banditry as simultaneous military and ground operations, because he said that when you bomb these Zamfara forests, the bandit might move to Sokoto or Kabir, Katsina and Kaduna. So he further said that although this simultaneous land and air assault in all these 5 affected states, including Niger State, at the same time, there you have troops in the camp as blocking force. It might lead to loss of innocent life, but the administration is actually willing to take the risk of collateral damage to secure Kaduna State and its environs. Now, is this actually a great step in the right direction? Is that the way to go?
With all due respect to His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, and the parliamentarians who are advocating for this, no, it won't solve the problem. Research and studies have shown that where you use unwarranted force against non-state actors, what all it does is it gives them the tool to recruit additionally from within the groups where they are operating, because all they will do is they point a finger, look, they're killing us, and so they will be able to recruit more. What is more important is to strengthen the administration of criminal justice, strengthen intelligence, strengthen the administration of criminal justice. And I'll quickly explain what I mean. Through intelligence, you'll be able to identify the membership, the leadership of these groups. Now, as a journalist, I'm sure if I ask you, I can't ask you, but you are the one asking the questions, but I'm sure if I ask you, have you ever seen the picture, the name, the profile of any of the bandits or criminal gunmen operating in Kaduna State? The likelihood is that you've never seen it. Meanwhile, our national counterterrorism strategy says that one of the first things that should be done is to identify these groups. So that's number one. The intelligence organizations, the president should issue a tasking. The governor can't do that, but the president can do that. Issue a tasking immediately. In fact, give them 1 month to identify and profile all the members and leadership of these organizations. And after they've identified them, let them publish them in national TV, in newspapers, so that every Nigerian knows who they are. Then the next component of the tasking is that the president should give them 1 month to arrest, and where they resist arrest, to kill those that have been identified. And I say this with all sense of responsibility. The first thing is to arrest them. Where they resist arrest, then yes, we do have enough local standing to kill them, as the National Counterterrorism Strategy and the Terrorism Prevention Act provides for. So the last component of that is to also use the soft approach to counterterrorism, to deny them the ability to generate funding, deny them the ability to recruit new members, and deny them the ability to get weaponry to continue their activities. Now, that for me is the better solution than bombardment. Like I said earlier on, studies have shown that bombardment would only give them the fodder, as it were, to recruit further and continue to propagate as terrorist groups always do.
All right, even as we begin to round up now, as it looks, Dr. Kabir, it seems as though we have stretched all our options. What else is there that we are yet to see or use? Because you recall the complete shutdown of telecommunication network in some of this northeastern states. And then, do we have any options left that we are yet to take up?
I just gave you a couple of options, and believe me, if we follow that option in 3 months, this will be over.
Okay.
I was very clear in giving like a time frame and a timeline for what I think should be done. And if it's done, then believe me, like I said, in 3 months, this will be over. There are 27 ministries, departments, and agencies in government. If the president issues that directive, and then the various coordinating elements within our security architecture take up that presidential tasking and introduces M&E, monitoring and evaluation mechanism, to see how these 27 are responding to the presidential directive. Remind you, it's within 1 month. And at the end of that 1 month, they do an evaluation to see which of these 27 have implemented Mr. President's directive. Those that have failed, let their leadership go. And then new persons are appointed. Believe me, within that 1 month, and then the next directive that I mentioned, which is to go after those that have been identified. In 3 months, this thing will be over. So those options that you listed out are lazy options. They are options that some leaders took, and frankly, they are not in any way rooted in security. If you ask me, in all sincerity, a lot of them are more political than security related. So it's absolutely important that we do the right thing. The politicizing security is not the way to go. This thing would swallow us if we do not tackle it immediately, and the solutions are there. I've given some of these solutions. Others I can't give on public media like this. I don't know your reach. If you've got reach to any of those membership of the security leadership, I'm happy to provide this pro bono. I don't have any other country. This is my country, and anything we do to support the end of this, I would gladly do it.
All right. Now, aside the ministry that you talked about, there have been continuous calls for state or community policing, as the case may be. But on the other hand, you get responses of how much state governors could use them at their own whims and caprices. At this point, those calling for state police or community policing, do they have justifiable reason for that call?
So I will answer your question in 2 dimensions. First off, I am in support of the decentralization of security. Now, that's different from state policing. Decentralization of security would mean giving the state governors more responsibility in security. So as an example, they are already chairmen of the state security councils at the subnational levels. All governors are chairmen of that. Second level option is they also receive a security vote, which is constitutional. Now, so we need to make these things constitutional. We need to introduce mechanisms for the functionality of these two functions, where there are means and mechanisms for monitoring them and ensuring that governors do it equitably. If you look at 2 states, as an example, Lagos State has a novel idea of using a security vote. It has set up a security trust fund, and every individual, every company that's operating in Lagos is encouraged to contribute money to that trust fund. And because that trust fund is transparent, companies, entities, individuals, donate to that trust fund. If you go to my state as an example, which is Sokoto State, Sokoto State, despite the numerous challenges, does not have a trust fund, a security trust fund. The governor donates money to this security organization, and there is no transparent way of monitoring how that money is being donated and how it's being used. Companies are not encouraged to donate directly. Rather, what we do, if you have a company or a house that you want protection, you go to the police, they give you a number of police officers, you pay money, and I can bet you that money goes to somebody's pocket. It doesn't really go to the treasury. So again, I'm in support of the decentralization of security in a manner that is constitutional. The second part of your question, which is state policing, in the long run, I am in support of state policing as an aspect of this decentralization. But before we do that, we need to strengthen democracy at the subnational level, strengthen the ability of of the legislature and judiciary to introduce checks and balances against the executive. Otherwise, we're going to have emperors that unfortunately would rule the states in the manner that emperors do. They're already doing that, even without the state policing. Imagine if there is state policing, what would have happened? So let's strengthen democracy at the state level first.
Thank you so much for your time with us, Dr. Kabir Adamu. It's been a wonderful time having this talk with you.
The pleasure is mine.
Same here, sir. All right, we have been chatting with Dr. Kabir Adamu. He is a security consultant, and we earlier talked to Dr. Emeka Okengwu, who is a development economist. Now, it's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. I'm sure you must have been entertained, rightly educated, and informed. I will definitely see you next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.